Good evening from Raleigh, North Carolina on Friday, September the 8th, 2017, 8:45 p.m. on the dot Eastern Daylight Time. Remember to make all decisions and preparations based on official National Hurricane Center forecasts or National Weather Service government entities with their official forecasts. Only resort to those, to make final decisions and preparations, evacuations, and other very major decisions. So we're within the red zone of Hurricane Irma here. Uh, Entering the time frame anywhere between 24 and 36 hours between its anticipated landfall in South Florida, the Florida Keys, Southwest Florida coast. A lot of the model guidance has suggested maybe it's going to pull more west into the west coast of Florida, but it doesn't really matter at this point where the center makes landfall because the wind field is so large now. The system is so large, as you can see by this very impressive looking infrared satellite loop. The system is so big that the entire peninsula of Florida is going to feel impacts from this, and as it moved inland, this is going to have very wide-ranging impacts outside of the forecast cone. So don't be confined to the cone. The cone represents where the center could land, but the winds are extending about 300 miles on either side of the center of circulation, so it's important to remember that. So just a few things to look over tonight. It's not going to be as long as a video as the past two nights, but we're seeing infrared satellite imagery here from GOES 16. But before I show you this, I want to actually show you what's been going on with Irma today. Quite interesting, actually. So this is microwave imagery, and it just restarted the loop. So what you're seeing is basically brightness temperature of the clouds, and you can see the inner eye wall here. And I can't slow this down, but you get the idea. Here's the outer eye wall, and you can see the inner eye wall start to erode. And the outer eye wall is actually taking over, and then this begins to constrict in just a second. Right there in the loop, which is just restarted now, is just going over Hispaniola, but it's called an eye wall replacement cycle. And what this does, it kind of chokes off the inner eye wall and it dissipates like it is right now. It's kind of eroding away at the inner eye wall. This outer eye wall takes over, and what this does is it expands the storm and expands the wind field. So it's basically another method of intensification. It's just like restructuring the system. It's resetting itself sort of and making a new eye wall. And I'll let this play one more time and show you the results of that on infrared satellite, which is quite interesting. Not good news for Florida, certainly, but excuse me. So as you can see here, if we go toward these last few, if I can stop this from animating, the eye was pretty small back here. I mean, small for relative to the storm. It's, I think it was 22 miles across, 22 nautical miles across, but you can see all of a sudden that about an hour and a half ago, 90 minutes ago, this explosion of convection, this dark ring around the eye, which represents really cold cloud tops. So the cloud tops have shot really high into the troposphere and have reached so high that they're registering cold temperatures because those cloud tops are above the freezing layer. And this huge explosion of convection indicates maybe possibility of rapid intensification because the eye wall right in here, if I can get my marker out and draw, and maybe a yellow color might be easy to see. This is the new eye wall. This is the new eye wall in here, and this will clear out, and it's much larger than it was back when we were back here. So I clear this out now. Back here, it's much smaller, but as we go forward in time, you can start to see signs of this. A little bit of dry air in here. I'm kind of getting entrained, but as we go to the last few scans here, it's really opening up, and this little appendage, a tonsil, as some meteorologists call it, in the eye should go away, and it's really turning into quite a buzzsaw, a very frightening situation for South Florida. One thing to watch for tonight is his interaction with Cuba. So if I get the handy marker back out here, Cuba is right here. This is the coast of Cuba, a few barrier islands right here, it looks like. And South Florida is right here. If you can't make out the satellite image too well, the Florida Keys are right here. So currently, Irma is heading west-northwest and is kind of following this track, but animated and lost my marker there. But you saw where the coastline was. And a key tonight is what, if any, land interaction will weaken Irma. Will it lead to a slight decrease in intensification? Will Irma defy odds and continue to intensify? Will it weaken a little bit? This is the most land interaction the storm has had since its formed, so it's going to be interesting to see how it handles this, and we can only hope that it maybe It doesn't make a landfall in Cuba, but it's close enough that it has some land interaction and weakens it tremendously to the point of lesser impacts on Florida. But unfortunately, there is going to be major impacts in Florida no matter what happens, because we're in that, that time zone, the 24 out of 36 hour now, to where there's going to be U.S. impacts within a day and a half. So we can hope for some intensification, or excuse me, some downgrade in intensity, a little bit of weakening from this land interaction here. But already parts of northern coast of Cuba getting hammered by the new eye wall that's formed here that we just talked about. So we can hope for the best here, and I'll try to stay posted on this tonight. I don't have class tomorrow, so I'll be up all night watching, and just like old times when I would watch the hurricanes go by and watch and see what happens. We can only hope for the best. Hope people have prepared. I think 5.6 on the order of there have evacuated or have been ordered to evacuate in Florida and coastal Georgia. So that's the situation. So I'm going to move on now to, we just looked at that, just to briefly show you the vast wind field. So this is the current wind field. This is on a great site I found called Tracker, so Hurricane Tracker. It's kind of a catch-all place for all kinds of things tropical, a lot of tropical monitoring. So it's a really great website. I'd highly recommend it. A little promotion there, but a very good place to kind of consolidate all the information, so you don't have to get it from so many different sources. That can get kind of confusing. But a huge wind field. This will probably expand with the new eye that's forming, with the new structure of the system. So that's the current wind field. And if we go to the updated National Hurricane Center official track, this is the only track you should abide by, the only track you should make decisions from, the only forecast track that you should really be paying attention to. Hurricane warnings are in red here, shown in southern Florida, parts of the Bahamas, Lake Okeechobee around there, because storm surge is expected to be a huge issue. The storm can be massive and doesn't have to have winds of 155 miles per hour like it currently does to cause vast storm surge effects. It's just this is a big system that's just pushing a wall of water, pushing all the water, and tides play a role in that on the coast, how severe it will be. But it's anticipated to be quite a bad situation for the Florida Keys down in here and the South Florida coast. So a very dangerous situation setting up for them. It's kind of a nowcast situation at this point. See what we have and see where it's going to go, and hope for the best. Like we said, people have prepared. We've been hyperactive about this situation. It's been in the news. It's been in the headlines and the forecasts for over a week now. We've known about it. We can only hope that people have taken preparations and that they're ready for a major storm in the form of a Category 4, possibly Category 5 hurricane making a U.S. landfall, which has not happened since Hurricane Andrew back in 1992. So we can only hope that that 25-year drought is not broken, and that it makes a landfall in South Florida as a minimal Category 4 as opposed to Category 5, because any reduction in strength is obviously going to be good. But that's the situation. It's kind of a grim situation as of now, but that's the state of the hurricane, the state of the peak tropical season. This is what you're going to get when you have large hurricanes impacting very populated areas. So if we kind of switch gears now and look at impacts in North Carolina, once again, this is the NAM, North American Mesoscale Model, 18Z run, an afternoon run from College DuPage Generation Weather Lab. And what this is wind gust, 10-meter wind gust, so just above the ground, not quite on the ground. But if we drag this forward in time, each one of these ticks is an hour. And what the numbers you see here, the shades are wind gusts. These are wind gusts, not sustained winds. The numbers are, point values for wind gusts. And if we fast forward this, we can start to see the impacts of Irma enter. This is as far as the model runs right now at 60 hours, but down in southern Georgia, South Carolina, some wind gusts really getting up there. These are numbers that can cause power outages with heavy rain bands. Like I mentioned in the video last night, in Hurricane Matthew last year, I think we had a peak wind gust of 45 miles per hour here, and I lost power for 3 days. So it just kind of depends on your power grid, on what's going on. You can hover the cursor around to see, some instantaneous values. In Raleigh, 29 knots, so maybe just shy of 35 miles per hour. In the Triad, very similar, 28 knots. Charlotte, 30 knots. Down in Columbia, South Carolina, a little bit stronger. And I guess we could switch down here, try the southeast. Yeah, this might be a little better. You can really see the Irma here, and it's making landfall. I mean, these are just astronomical numbers, 98, 100. I think I saw 106 flash up. So clearly a very devastating situation. This storm could not take a worse track in terms of covering as much real estate as it's going to with its vast wind field. But the only silver lining, like I mentioned last night, is it is moving quick. So the flooding threat is not as great, but there's still going to be a tremendous amount of rain causing flash flooding. You have to be alert. You have to be aware. Even up here in North Carolina, some rain bands that might swing through could have isolated tornadoes. They'll have, torrential rain. Flash flooding is a possibility. Wind gusts. It's just we're going to feel the presence of Irma, like I've said a couple of times now. The degree of severity of that's still a little bit unclear, even 24 hours out from its U.S. landfall. But it's important to note that we're going to feel the presence. You're going to know there's a hurricane making landfall in the southeast, even into tomorrow. If I switch back here to the Mid-Atlantic view, tomorrow night, if we just go 24 hours from this forecast ran, gusts to 10 miles, 10 knots, 14 knots, 11 knots, you're going to feel it. And then if we go, 2 days from now, this is Sunday evening for us, a little bit stronger. It's going to be windy outside. There may be rain bands moving through, some scattered showers. So that's just the nature of the system. And as it moves up, I'll probably post some more of these model runs on my Facebook page or Twitter to reflect, what the current forecasts show. But bottom line here, if I go back and animate this just to see the power that this system is putting out is just remarkable. And this explosion of convection and the eye clearing out. A very serious situation for Florida. All eyes are going to be on it. The Weather Channel has outstanding live coverage of it. I could recommend, I might put a list of several meteorologists on Twitter or weather enthusiasts that follow it closely and can give in-depth information. It's an interesting thing to watch, but it's hard to watch knowing at the same time that people are in danger, people in harm's way, and that we can only hope, like I've said, that people took the appropriate steps to prepare themselves, and we just have to watch it play out and see what happens at this point. We can only hope for some weakening, but that's pretty much all I had in store for tonight's video. I'll do another update tomorrow, and we'll see what's happening with Hurricane Irma. Seems like it's going to have quite a legacy. Unfortunately, it's already left to cut a path through the Caribbean, affecting northern Cuba right now. It may make remember, the landfall would have to be for the center of circulation to cross over land, so I don't know if it'll make an official landfall, but it looks like it's kind of slowing down, so we'll see what happens. But sort of concerning with this new eye wall clearing out and seeing, the storm kind of rev up as it gets closer to the United States is certainly not what you want to see, but we will see what happens. I hope you stay safe. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me on Facebook, Twitter, however you want to communicate with me. Send me an email, that's fine. But if you have any questions on South Carolina impacts, North Carolina impacts, just feel free to shoot me a message, and we'll see how this one plays out, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.